Hey guys, Steve here at SKS Props, and today we're going to sculpt a pumpkin to look like a critter. Welcome to the shop. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button because we'll be coming back with lots more tips and tricks for prop and costume fabrication. Now everyone knows when I get done with all of my Halloween orders, I sculpt a pumpkin. Now this particular year, I decided that I wanted to replicate something, so I love cheesy horror films. I decided I was going to make a pumpkin that looked like a critter. I'm going to show you guys the steps that it takes to do this. We got a lot to do, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is go through our list of supplies. So here I've got a bunch of sculpting tools, both small and large, paper towels, a spray bottle filled with 60/40 water to bleach, gloves to protect my hands, plastic sheeting, and of course, our pumpkin. I get out my trusty Lazy Susan and cover it with the plastic sheeting. This is because the pumpkin skin will get everywhere. After I decide where my artwork on the pumpkin is going to go, I take one of the large sculpting tools and start to peel off the rind of the pumpkin. Now this process takes a while because the skin of the pumpkin is very tough. And just like a preliminary sketch, I take a smaller sculpting tool and start mapping out exactly where all the features are going to be on the face of this pumpkin. Sculpting on a pumpkin like this is all subtractive sculpting, so you want to make sure not to take too much of the meat out in the beginning stages. At this point, I'm not trying to go too deep into the skin, I'm just trying to get a visual idea of where everything is going to go. As you can see, I'm very light-handed with the sculpting tools at this point. Every pass, I take just a little bit more meat out. Once I've got the roadmap to this face figured out, that's when I can go in with sharper and smaller tools and really start to define where the eyes, mouth, and nose are going to be. The biggest thing you're going to have a challenge with is sculpting on a pumpkin is a lot different than clay because you're having to deal with the organic nature of the pumpkin itself. You're going to have pieces that are going to just break off out of nowhere. You just kind of have to learn to roll with the punches on that and just continue to refine your sculpt. Even though this isn't what the final version of the teeth are going to look like, it helps me mentally just to kind of be able to block it out on here so I know where everything is going to line up. Once I've gone through a couple passes with the loop tools, I decide that I really need to start defining where all the edges on everything are going to be. And a scalpel is a great way to do this. Basically, you'll do an over and under cut and then just peel that out with the blade. It will leave a very deep recess in the skin. Throughout the process, I'm continually spraying the sculpture also with the water and bleach mixture. This helps with hydrating the surface of it, but also killing bacteria that may start to build up. I'm using the mini saws to cut out the mouth. Now, when you're doing subtractive sculpting on a pumpkin like this, you have a lot of big decisions and you pretty much only get one shot, so be very confident with how you're sculpting. Using a dental tool, I remove the mouth section of the pumpkin and then I pull a lot of the innards forward. I want the mouth on this critter to look absolutely disgusting. The scalpel knife is used once again, this time to cut out in detail all of the teeth. Now I wanted a lot of the stringy innards to be also hanging out of the mouth, again giving it that really nasty look. A great way to keep all this stuff on the pumpkin without having it fall off is using superglue. Superglue will work great if you're going to add any additional details to the pumpkin, so if I wanted to add horns or additional teeth, you could easily do that just by putting a little dot of superglue down, and then it will adhere the pumpkin directly to itself. This is the part that starts getting fun because once you've got everything placed, then you can start going in and doing all of the details using the scalpel and smaller sculpting tools. To make the pupils on this critter's eyes, I use a sculpting tool that's round and I just use it like a saw to break all the way through. And then using a dental tool, I take a very small piece of the meat that I had cut and I use that as the highlight for the inside of the pupil. Now that I know exactly how thick the pumpkin's flesh is, I can sculpt down where the nose would be. The sculpt's looking pretty good, I'm happy with it, but I think there just needs to be a little bit more, so I decided to break out my airbrush. In this case, I'm using Createx Opaque Red to give the critter the iconic red eyes and some blood around the mouth. After I thoroughly clean my airbrush, I then switch over to some Createx Opaque Black and start to give this critter some defined highlights and shadows. To simulate the fur that he has all over him, I just decided to airbrush really dark around the outside of the face, and then using a hook tool, I'd then go back and scrape away the pumpkin skin and the airbrush pigment. That'll give it kind of the look of it being fur. That same basic technique is used to then scrape away some of the pigment around the nose, eyes, and mouth. To finish this critter off, I use some Angelus white acrylic to put a highlight in the eyes. So you guys can see what it takes to make a pumpkin look like a critter. Now, a lot of these techniques can be used to sculpt whatever pumpkin you would like. The biggest thing is just to grab a pumpkin, start sculpting, and honestly, it's pretty relaxing. You're gonna enjoy it. Now, if you guys like this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Be sure to swing back by again for more tips and tutorials. Until then, thanks for stopping by.